Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, in both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The Daily Ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, all four of those films directed by Steven Spielberg, and we finally have our newly released Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, directed by James Mangold. It's gonna be a great show, folks, so stay tuned and enjoy. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tom, how's it going?
It's going okay for me. How was your Indiana Jones-filled week?
It was a hell of a week.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Talk
You're
about
hearing a lot of it.
Yeah, in my head the entire week. I mean, just shy of a Spielberg-themed week, but it really is a secret John Williams week. I mean, if only that he does all five.
He's the most consistent, actually.
Yeah.
So we're doing Indiana Jones for Indiana Jones 5. How did you feel about this week? Like, how did you feel approaching it? Were you excited? Were you dreading?
I was definitely excited, but, honestly, there is a deep, dark secret I have with this film franchise. And, folks, I like to keep it real here on the podcast. It's about me and Tom hanging out like we normally did and what movies I watched this week. But this dark confession is a bombshell. I have never seen the Indiana Jones movies.
Any of them?
So I've seen some of Crystal Skull when I was young.
Some, but didn't even go to the movies for it.
Yeah, and obviously I don't know. I mean, I think my mentality here, the real talk, is that when I was growing up, I don't know, I was a Star Wars kid. I was like, I don't want it. I'm not an adventure.
Okay, I get that.
I wasn't into an adventure. I wasn't into pirates. So that's Indiana Jones and Pirates of the Caribbean.
I was into adventure. Pirates of the Caribbean was just cool at the time, personally. I liked Pirates of the Caribbean.
They're big movies.
Not super into pirates, but as a kid, I loved Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
I even watched some of the original, the show that came out in the 90s.
Oh,
thing.
really? Okay.
Yeah, the episodic thing.
Yep.
Because I like the adventure.
Yeah.
So that was right up my alley. But it's funny, and then I was a little bit lighter on Star Wars, actually. Funny enough.
Yeah.
But I watched them at least. But I don't think it's a terrible thing that you haven't watched Indiana Jones. I'm glad that you kind of saved it for something like this.
Yeah.
The fact that you're coming up with fresh eyes with a massive IP like this.
Exactly. And the last thing that I would want is to come and try to fake it or anything like that. That's not what this is about. This is about being as genuine and sincere in these reviews as possible and give people my heads or tails and if it's worth their time. So when it comes down to that, I mean, I was very excited to watch all these this week,
definitely.
But in no way did I want to fib a little bit and say, hey, I've seen these before. Nope, I have not seen Indiana Jones.
I mean, that's so cool at your age, you get to watch these with fresh eyes. I love that.
Yeah. And I've obviously seen the iconic clips and everything like that. He shoots the guy with the scimitar. And I think as I was growing up, I was like, do I really need to watch these films all the way? That's kind of where
it just wasn't your vibe. But it just wasn't your thing.
Yeah,
I would love to know what was your preconceptions of the films. Did you go in? I figured this one was going to be the best. I figured this one was going to be the worst. Did you have
I I tried to stay away from it as much as possible. Unfortunately, I was not able to stay away from it.
No,
I knew the legacy of Crystal Skull. I've obviously heard the rumblings about Dial of Destiny. Even.
Right. But what about even the original 3?
Yeah, the original 3 trilogies, I was kind of aware that Temple of Doom was the redhead stepchild, and you know, it's about basically 1 and 3. So, I did try to stay away from it, and if only to call my own shots with it, but I mean, the writing's on the wall a little bit. It kind of is what it is.
I actually really have no idea how. I don't know where these are going to end up. I'm excited, and as blocks, like what are the first 3 scores and then the last 2.
Right.
I honestly have no idea how they're going to compare to each other. Those 2 different kind of those eras, sort of. But I love it. I love that it's 4th of July. Happy 4th of July.
4th of July. Happy Independence.
Finn. Yeah. I love that America's Birthday. We're doing Indiana Jones. It's a very American IP.
Very American. Absolutely.
So I just kind of love that too. I think it's very fitting. By accident.
Yeah.
I think we're going to run long today. Let's have fun. Let's have fun tonight.
Yeah, buckle in, folks. It's a doozy. I mean, nearly every one of these films is a doozy, in for better or worse. So, yeah.
All right, Vin. Now, where should we start? In 1973, George Lucas wrote The Adventures of Indiana Smith. He was looking to create a modern version of movie serials from the 30s and 40s. Old serials were a series of short films following a single story that were played weekly at a theater until the story concluded. This is also how Lucas approached Star Wars. He worked with writer and director Philip Kaufman to get a concept of the story, and after several weeks, he landed on the story revolving around the Ark of the Covenant. In '77, Lucas went to Maui to find peace while Star Wars was becoming a worldwide phenomenon. Also on vacation in Maui at that time was his friend and colleague, Steven Spielberg. Spielberg told Lucas that he had interest in making a Bond movie, and Lucas said he had an idea that was better than James Bond. He laid out the plot to the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Spielberg loved the idea, and he called it Bond without the hardware. In 1978, Lucas, Spielberg, and writer Lawrence Kasdan came together for a story conference. And while discussing the character, Lucas said, "That's another important concept of the movie, that it be totally believable. It's a spaghetti western, only it takes place in the 30s, or it's James Bond, and it takes place in the 30s. Except James Bond tends to get a little outrageous at times. We're going to take the unrealistic side of it off, and make it more like the Clint Eastwood westerns. The thing with this is, we wanted to make it a very believable character. We want him to be extremely good at what he does. Bond and the Man with No Name were very good at what they did. They were very fast with the gun, they were very slick, they were very professional. They were Superman." The 3 agreed to change the name from Indiana Smith to Indiana Jones. And finally, in 1981, Vin, the characters came to life on screen in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's great. What a phenomenal intro, Tom.
So
that's great. I also love keeping it realistic, keeping it out of this kind of ridiculous category.
Yeah.
Really goes out the window as soon as Temple of Doom comes around. So
I know.
Yeah. But I think that's a great intro because it's, coming into this series, the legend is that Raiders is the best. And I was actually really excited to say, hey, is that really the fact here? I do think it's the fact. But why is that the case? I think that plays into some of the magic mix. That plays into some of the cocktail of why Raiders is so good. With solid intentions there. So let's get into it. Yeah.
It's the first biggie.
A doozy. So like the intro, Tom, there are countless films that have their roots in these comic serials of old. Many science fiction, horror, and of course adventure stories can all be traced back to these weekly tales, and either as inspiration or using the tropes of those stories. A great example of just using the trope is a cliffhanger in screenwriting, something that we've seen an ugly return in theaters as of late, looking at Fast 10 and even Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, the idea with these serials where it's just a short film.
Yeah.
And then they would always leave you with a hook at the end.
Exactly.
Because they want you to go back to the theater a week later.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and like you said, as far as even George Lucas's groundbreaking work from 77, New Hope, or just Star Wars, it takes inspiration from serials like Flash Gordon and other like it in the medium. So that kind of creates two categories here: direct adaptations of the serials, such as 1980's Flash Gordon, like I mentioned, or even Spielberg's own Adventures of Tintin in 2011. And of course, secondly, it's the films that capture the spirit of these stories, transformed through the lens of the creators to be blended, to be built upon, and ultimately become something greater. And this is what brings us to Indiana Jones as a franchise, why it's so electric, so magnetic to it. Indiana Jones is an archaeology professor and the world's greatest adventurer. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indy is given a lead by the U.S. government on the legendary Ark of the Covenant, an artifact that held the original 10 Commandments. But he has to keep it out of his rivals' hands, mainly the Nazis, who seek its forbidden and untold powers. And that really is our setup. It's a lot of desert. It's a lot of Kraken whips, a lot of being in Egypt, and honestly, Raiders was a joy to watch. There was was nothing about this film that I said, that's not so great, and unfortunately, each entry from here on out gets peppered, gets a little bit of pigeonholed. I'll say it in Temple of Doom, kind of dies by a bunch of paper cuts.
Okay.
There are minor things that chip away at, I think, every sequel, and it's so amazing when you watch Raiders to feel this lightning in the bottle experience. We talked about it with Matrix way long ago in the podcast. Yeah. We've mentioned this lightning in a bottle concept. I really do think Raiders just hits it out of the park for that reason.
I think going into the series as a whole, something that I feel like would hurt it in you viewing it, I know you typically don't like cheesy jokes.
Right.
Cheesy one-liners, and that Indiana Jones definitely has that.
Yeah, definitely goofy.
So I know you're probably going a little side-eyeing it a little bit at times. It is a little bit of a magic in a bottle. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, it's a continuing character for sure, but there's a reason why it grew from this one film.
Yeah, absolutely. Of the many great things, cast work is seriously great in this. I don't have a single critique. Harrison Ford is definitely attempting to act in this, which is always good news, and not the case later on in the franchise. That really can't be said for all of his movies, period. So glad we get Harrison Ford actually trying. Karen Allen was amazing in this.
Yeah, it's Marion.
Yeah, such a fun character without being annoying or patronizing. I'll return to that patronizing aspect in the sequels, but it really made me want to watch more movies with her, despite her not having anything too notable beyond this. Such a well-written character and a well-written sidekick. John, my axe, Rhys Davies is wonderful in this. He's singing all the time and just a great ally to Indy. And I think a great allies is a secret ingredient to Indiana Jones. I think one of my favorite qualities of these films are the camaraderie among Indy's allies. Eventually we get all sorts of backstabbers and turncoats in the series, but here in Raiders, it's so clear-cut, and you think that would be a bad thing. You think you need some salt and pepper, but it's so clear-cut, the good guys versus the bad guys, that it's pure. It works on a pure level. And boy, Rhys Davies, great. The ongoing joke in our friend group, folks, is that if we were to recast Lord of the Rings, I would be Gimli. Always hated that. I think after watching this, I'm all right with that. He's awesome.
Yeah, against your will. No, yeah, John Rhys Davies, as Salah is his character, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely a good ally. It's funny how with each film we get almost like a new buddy or somebody that Jones knows really well or something like that. There's always just that thing, but he's a goodie.
Absolutely.
And I think he's well liked, and just for the fact that we don't, we see him again.
Yes, exactly. He makes the cut, if you will, for nostalgia bait. Yeah, and honestly, when it comes to, I don't know, that reveal aspect of another friend in Indiana Jones's history. It's why I was so grateful for actually watching all 5 of these in a row, because I think if I jumped into just Dial of Destiny, no less not seeing the previous films, I would be confused by that aspect. I would say, oh, it was this guy in this previously? I don't understand.
Right,
so,
yeah.
But that's more so a quality of Indy has a rich history and many allies there. So, Tom, someone on the team is doing some heavy lifting for this film, though, and his name is John Williams. As a huge fan of the original Star Wars trilogy, this soundtrack is 10 out of 10. So many iconic aspects. The playful flutes reminded me of Return of the Jedi in a good way, even though I grind an axe against Return of the Jedi. The low horns when something goes wrong, the high notes when a solution is found on a puzzle. It's like... Man, I mean, the dude is brilliant. John Williams' score is a language in itself and elevates nearly every scene. In fact, when there are quiet moments in Raiders, is when I felt there was a noticeable absence of his score in those scenes. Also, this is high praise specifically for the first entry only. Later films, I think Williams is killing it across the board, but it's never as magical as in Raiders. I feel in later films, he plays around with character themes and motifs that come in when the characters are introduced or they have a play on the happening in the scene. And it always just feels like it's always referencing Raiders' score. It never really does its own thing again. And that's why I feel like in this first entry, it's just so monolithic. It's
lightning in a bottle once again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So look, guys, because you had an axe to grind earlier this week.
Ben and I had saw each other kind of over the weekend, and we don't talk about it really. Save it for the show,
right? Horse blinders on.
But I just made a comment. I just said I have a hot take on John Williams, and you started laughing. I think first, let me start by saying this just for the whole episode. Okay. This is episode 90. Congratulations, first of all.
Congrats.
But in 90 episodes, I was never so bummed out that I wasn't able to watch all these films with you.
Oh, okay.
I really wanted to watch these all. Sure. And whether I had Tommy Two Shoes or not, I just wanted to get them watched.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to watch this first one. I started it a bunch of times. It was late at night. I just couldn't get there.
You always falling asleep.
I know. But so then...
Tommy Snooze Shoes.
So the problem is I did watch, as you know, Temple of Doom.
Yep.
So then we have that at least to look forward to. I think John Williams is the best in the past 100 years of all of cinema.
Wow.
For score creating.
Okay.
Specifically this score. Even though Star Wars, he kind of takes from other things. I mean, On the Shoulder of Giants, as you say.
Absolutely.
But when you listen to like some other composers and of just music before him, he's definitely pulled from some stuff.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's fine. You just look at the resume. It's very impressive. Everything is iconic. This is iconic. Jaws is iconic. I mean, Star Wars and Jurassic Park. Everything else in his movies, I'm starting to have serious issues with. He's way too present and loud. He is
very loud.
He's too loud, and sometimes he's just too not jingly, but just like, this is serious. Why are you playing this stupid? Why are you playing this stupid fucking music right now? It's just, I was really annoyed with him.
Really?
And then it just brought me straight back to Star Wars, where I'm just like, oh yeah, that reminds me of that scene. When it's just like, what is he doing here?
Yeah.
So those horns and those cute little things and his flute, oftentimes I feel childish or kiddish or should be in kid shows. I find it to be annoying. I don't find it to be poignant or serious.
Interesting.
And it's almost like you could swap anything at any time. All this B-roll music that he uses, he can pluck and just rearrange anywhere because it doesn't have importance to the specific film. I like the idea that the little cues, he figures out something, he hears something high end, whatever.
Yeah, and I like specifically that being a audio language in addition to the visual language.
The structure, right? That's structure, that's purpose. That stuff is fine. Overall, I love the score. When it comes on, it's all great. All his meandering middle work is just it's not doing it for me. It's not doing for me. I couldn't stop thinking about Howard Shore.
Okay.
Lord of the Rings, I could ask 10 people, what is the theme of Lord of the Rings? And I could get 5 different answers. Okay. Where obviously, it's not like Indiana Jones, everyone knows the theme. Star Wars, you know the theme. Jurassic Park, you know the theme. The reason why I love Howard Shore as a composer, he properly composes for the entire film. It's not just a smash. It's not like Mr. Kool-Aid coming in, like John Williams with a big old hit, and then he just like gives it to he brings in,
that's great.
He brings B-team in to finish up the rest of the crap in the film. Howard Shore is very poignant, very significant throughout the entire film, and very honed into the specific things happening on screen. I have a lot of appreciation for that.
I get what you're saying in the sense that...
I love John Williams.
Yeah, exactly. The judgment is not on the quality. The judgment is not on the hits. The judgment is on the in-betweens.
Yes.
The bridges.
His score work is phenomenal.
Okay.
Just it's a deep feeling that I've had.
I didn't expect it was this much of an
It's been growing for a bit.
Wow,
Last time I watched the original Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
When I went through the 3.
Really?
It was really bothersome. It took me out of it. Totally took me out of it.
That makes a lot of sense in the sense that On the Shoulders of Giants, obviously Star Wars pulls from a lot of classical music. I forget who does the composing, but the planets is basically the Death Star theme.
Borderline steals like the intro to Darth Vader, basically, which is fine.
Yeah, the Imperial March. I didn't expect it to come so out the gate, guns blazing.
Pay attention next time you watch a John Williams film. He's too loud. He's too busy. When there's other stuff going on, it's just like, stop. Just quiet down. It's not about you. Let Indy do his thing. I don't need your kiddish tones. I don't know.
I want merch created that John Williams his face is on a Kool-Aid man. I think that's our first line of merch.
Sounded right when it came out. I'll probably regret it.
I think it's a great perspective. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but I definitely can meet you in the middle in the sense that he is extremely dominant. Like when his music is playing, he's taking over the scene a little bit.
I'll put together a supercut for you.
Okay, I love it
at some point.
That's great.
And
we'll throw it on the socials.
Yeah.
At John Williams.
Yeah, just as a test theory almost.
Yeah, I love it.
I think I could bring you over to my side more.
That's great.
I have to be honest.
That's great.
But I don't want to take up too much time. We'll just...
No, I think I love that.
For the rest of the podcast, just let that be known.
Right.
That's a thing
and legitimately,
that I've been dealing with.
I don't have too many notes for John Williams for the next 4 films. And that's where I said, it's high praise here.
Yep.
I think it's good in the rest of the 4 films. It's a lot of rinse repeat, though.
Sure.
Just, if anything, on the shoulders of that... that first score and that first dynamite theme.
Yeah, definitely set the tone.
As the earworm for everyone. Action wise in Raiders, the whole movie is very cute and playful, but out of nowhere will shock you. It could be a splash of violence or worse, something a little scary. The entire sequence that they first get to Cairo is a flawless example of this. There is also a propeller death that is pretty brutal, and maybe say, y'all sure you want this on Disney Plus?
You were expecting it, huh?
No. I again, scenes like that, I know.
They're iconic.
They are in, the pool of my brain.
Yeah.
But, just seeing them unfold and the tension of the scene and really, and seeing the tension of the action scene, it was great. The tone of the story bounces around quite a bit, which I honestly found to be one of the best aspects and the best parts of the franchise. My original note was a criticism I often have, and I said, how could this be rated PG? And that plays into some of the production, I believe, of Temple of Doom. I believe Temple of Doom was one of the last to really push into PG-13. And while I still kind of have that question of, man, how did they say this was all right for general audiences? I think it really is one of the most brilliant aspects about this movie, and to lesser extents the sequels, but it's this fluid tone. Raiders of the Lost Ark is distinctly for all ages. The film effortlessly creates a tone that is constantly shifting in and out of family fun, serious beats, and even horrific stakes. Yeah. And that's where really the legend for this clicked for me. Folks, I knew reviewing this film in particular, the legend I was up against, but it was only until I experienced this fluid tone, this for all ages aspect, that I saw that the film was really worthy of being called great. I mean, this clicked on so many levels. Tom, I finally now understand why they made the end of Uncharted 1 so scary. Because it has to be. It has to be.
It has to be. The end of that.
Yeah. It has a proper adventure film like this. It has to be, or at least in that sense that it's trying to copy Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones with this fluid tone has to be all of these things. It's because adventuring is scary, and it's also perilous, but it's also exciting and romantic, and most of all fun, and this movie captures it all. We're going to go ahead and give Raiders of the Lost Ark 1981 and 82.
Woo! Wow.
Great movie. Really
I love
great
that you got in the 80s. 82 is huge.
Yep.
82 is huge.
So much so that
Wow.
I will probably go back and watch Raiders again after this week. It
I'm
was
definitely
that
going
good.
to. I'm like I said, I'm upset that I couldn't watch it.
Sure.
It's totally on my list.
Yep.
Because I want to go back to it.
Yeah.
82 is a big score.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And worth it. Absolutely worth it.
I think, and this and Temple of Doom are just shy of 2 hours long. Mm-hmm. And I think the PG thing also, we're in the early 80s. So just the rating scale is just a little bit just different.
You're right, right.
It picks up, PG-13 starts with Last Crusade.
Yep.
But, man, 82, I'm so happy for you that you like this.
Absolutely. And the only thing to really keep in mind is that fluid tone, I think that is the hallmark, that is the trademark of Indiana Jones, that it kind of exists in this sometimes demanding, sometimes scary, but all ages space. And I think that's the key for why the franchise was so successful as well, at least in my opinion.
You're right with the scariness too, like being a kid and watching those.
Oh
it's
my God.
Weird. It could be creepy.
Absolutely.
So not like too young,
Yeah.
I would show kids.
Right.
But I didn't know if you were going to like that aspect in total with Indiana Jones, where it seems like it's kind of stupid, jokey, cheesy lines,
Right.
a little bit of a dry humor, and then you get something very serious.
Yep.
You get something stupid, then serious. I don't know if you were going to like that roller coaster ride, kind of, but you liked it in this one at least.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, it's something I like enough that I'm in for the franchise. Watching Raiders, and I watched all of these in order.
Beauty.
Watching Raiders, I was like, okay, now I'm like extra excited for what's to come, because
Very
I was
cool.
about this fluid tone.
Very good, Vin. So we'll move on. And if you hear explosions, we're not in a war zone either. It's literally the 4th of July at night, so fireworks are about to be popping off, literally.
It'll be popping off.
But anyway, okay, so obviously huge box office success.
Yep.
It didn't create the big adventure movie, but it kind of revamped and kind of recreated the big, successful box office hit adventure movie.
Absolutely.
It really took off, and it was such an American story kind of. They really wanted to be kind of that, you know?
Yeah. And revolutionary in the sense that you would call an adventure movie like this in the 50s, or maybe even in the genre of those comic serials, swashbuckling adventure. And
yeah, definitely.
That type of verbiage goes away after Indiana Jones. That's how big this is.
Yes, and you had some bad copycats, I think, because it's almost like, where did this go? Because we have adventure today, but you have action adventure.
Yeah.
Not adventure.
Exactly.
Two very different things.
Exactly.
But regardless, huge financial success. Oh, and I will note on this. Speaking of some of those old serial films, there was a character that followed a lot of similar plot lines to Raiders of the Lost Ark. The guy name was Jones, or his last name was Jones, and they took his exact wardrobe.
Oh, the hat.
Yeah. The hat, the jacket, the shirt, everything, to the point where the costume designer said that they watched. I forget it was called China.
Okay.
And man, I forget what the actor's name that was in it. They said they watched it multiple times in preparation for Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they just to a T stole his entire look.
Wow.
And that just goes to George Lucas, like really pulling and trying to make these old kind of movie serials.
Absolutely. Lucas is like a little bit of a Tarantino character in the 70s in that he's pulling from found media basically and blending it into making something new.
All right, so let's jump on. We're 3 years later now. This is a period where both Spielberg and Lucas are going through breakups and bad divorces.
Oh,
I think
really?
Spielberg is going through a really kind of nasty divorce here. And Temple of Doom.
That's amazing backstory. I had no idea that.
Temple of Doom, for that reason, is definitely the darker. You had called kind of the redheaded stepchild.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to get into it. This is the one I've watched most when I was a kid.
Okay.
I don't know why, but I just tended to watch this more.
Interesting.
And it could just be a product of that was what was on.
Yeah, or identifying with Short Round
exactly,
as a kid.
That's
right.
important. So let's get into it right away. Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom, 1984. Vin, how was it?
Well, for starters, I mean, this movie really sold me on the idea of Indiana Jones being a series versus one film. When I realized this took place in 1935, I yelled out loud, "Prequel!" So I guess you could say I was hooked at that point.
You like that idea?
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
We're set a year before the events of the first film.
Yeah. And obviously this series kind of gets lost in the sauce with, like, what did Indiana Jones do in World War II? And what did he do in this year? But
right.
I liked the concept of a prequel because it sold the idea of this is yet another adventure with Indiana Jones. You know what I mean? It sold the series aspect rather than a Dynamite movie, you know?
No, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Temple of Doom has a lot of mixed reviews online, folks, or just in general. Only outlier is Ebert loved this on release, which was really surprising.
He did. I think he gave it 3.5 stars?
Or 4, I think.
Oh, my God.
It's a perfect score.
And the funny thing about this got bad reviews when it came out, and then in the 90s, it started getting really positive reviews. And now apparently it's starting to take a toll, kind of like being looked poorly again.
Yes, yeah. It's back and forth. I honestly, I tried to do some research, but again, I wanted to stay away from it too, especially before watching the film, because I wanted to kind of stay pure on it.
Which I love.
Yeah. But it is a messy movie. I feel like in that 90s bloom, maybe it's being fueled by home video sales and just people being nostalgic over it.
I think mostly what it was when this first came out, it was such a bit of a shock to the system that this is a Steven Spielberg film and how dark it is. Spielberg apparently after the film and still today doesn't love the film all too much because he thinks he went too dark. Again, him and Lucas were going through these rough periods in their lives and they kind of went down this dark road. I think what it was, so people were shocked by it and a little turned off by it. But I think in the 90s, after you have things like Goodfellas and these Pulp Fiction, these more serious films, dark, gritty, that starts to become cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what it was. The reason why it's looked upon down now is Short Round, he's stepping on bugs and he goes, I think it's fortune cookies. Like, that's why it's not like now.
I also read a lot of stuff that they're, the like monkey brain scene and some of the dining scene.
Right.
It's like seen as like culturally insensitive.
Right. So that's why it's unlike today.
Yeah.
As far as movie making qualities,
right.
It wasn't liked for a reason, then it was.
Right.
Now we're just going through a period of,
Yeah.
But that's kind of how that unfolded.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad you could help me with it because I again, this was one of the things where me not being a fan could be a little bit of a hindrance, honestly, but I was overall excited to dive into it with fresh eyes.
Definitely.
In Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones gets tangled up in tracking down a mystical stone stolen by a fringe occult. When it comes to this movie, it's a fair bit more silly, which doesn't help diving into the plot in the beginning. Not to mention the motivation for the adventure doesn't feel as strong. Folks, I'll say right away that I don't think this is an outright worse sequel. If anything, it has that great fluid tone, just like the first one, just in a little bit more of a drastic spectrum of where it goes in the scary, where it goes in the comedic. It's kind of, that fluid tone is stretched if you were to see it on like a scale. So I really would not blame a hardcore fan for liking this one as much as the first, and maybe even their favorite of an original trilogy. But like I said in the intro of the whole episode, I think this one is death by paper cuts. It's a lot of small issues that slowly chip away at how good the film could be. Getting into that, if there's anything that raises Raiders clearly above everything else, is the casting of characters. Everyone is flawless in the first one, adding so much to the experience. Each character is fleshed out, has sway on the plot when they're involved in it, and is filled with great acting performances. Sadly, I don't think that's the case here. We're 2 out of 3 bad, basically.
Oh.
With this coming out a year after Return of the Jedi, we are officially in the phase of Harrison Ford's Ford's acting, where he occasionally just acts like a buffoon. We see this towards the end of the film after he drinks some voodoo blood, and he's just like,
What?
it's his lips. I don't know, something about his like these like imbecile lip acting that he does.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Not a huge fan, and honestly, if we ever tackle original trilogy Star Wars, I will have the same axe to grind with Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Harrison, Han Solo is the worst part of Return of the Jedi.
Okay. So you think that you really think that second film in,
yeah,
he's already not even caring as much.
I don't think he's caring as much, and he fluctuates a little bit, but I feel like he kind of just levels out as just Harrison Ford. Where in the first one there was something different about his acting, and I think it's the same quality that I would associate with his earlier films. Period, being New Hope and Empire Strikes Back.
Okay, I'm surprised the lip thing got you when he drank the blood.
No. Mostly after.
Okay,
his like drunk stumbling.
He's being like poisoned. He's just like part of it. All right, he didn't like it. That's okay.
Not for me.
I was in. I'm in for it.
Kate Capshaw as the singer Willie, was just such a drag on everything. And honestly, her character just feels so generic and predictable in how she was used. Scared of the jungle, complains constantly, ekes at bugs. It's a quality that, unfortunately, in some of these films, I feel like the family fun element becomes a little bit more cookie cutter and a lot more generic and predictable for that reason. And her character just resembled that so perfectly in a bad way.
It was a bit too over the top.
Yeah.
Again, I did watch this one again.
Yeah.
After actually not stepping away from it for a decent amount of years, but I don't mind having that kind of ditzy character, and Jones has to have to worry about another person on his crew who's kind of useless, but it is over the top.
Sure.
To the point where a little annoying.
Sure, right.
Yeah.
And from what I can tell, her character inclusion is where a lot of just like the hate on the film itself comes from. People find her annoying.
Right.
I definitely found her annoying.
People find her annoying, yeah.
Yeah. And even how you said it there, Tom, like it's another character that Jones has to care about. That's not the case in Raiders. You know what I mean?
Right,
That's in the inevitable comparison game of covering a series. That's what puts it a notch above, basically. I'll tell you though, the iconic short round played by a now Oscar-winning Ke Kwan, it is something else. I think, Tom, this might be in the Hall of Fame for kid performances.
I had made a note to myself to ask you. Do you think this is like top 5, top 10 kid actors?
It's up there. Absolutely. I thought I was going to hate it. I really loved it.
It was shocking.
Yeah.
I was like, man, he really is good.
Yeah. He's just so entertaining. This, child-sized Quan has a wonderful facial performance, emoting so clearly in every type of scene.
Yep. It's a great note. A lot of times kids don't have that.
Right, right. His excitement fuels fun scenes, and his child terror amps up the scary scenes, which I think, again, is important for the much larger range of the fluid tone in this film, and maybe, again, this is a key to why you kind of identified with it as a kid, Temple of Doom specifically.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense. Yeah.
Having a kid is important for kind of selling the for all ages aspect that this adventure film goes after.
Right. Now, I'm assuming you didn't hate Harrison Ford fully. Like, no. I really love the volley back and forth, the ping pong game that those two play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anytime Harrison Ford breaks out into another language, I'm in for it. I love it in this film.
Absolutely. That's a good point. He does have a lot of those moments just dealing with the locales and whatnot,
right.
and having short round. It just feels like, I don't know, it was like Willie, she's just such a drag on things.
I don't disagree with the Willie thing.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with the Willie thing at all.
Yeah. And you know what I mean with like the predictability of it is like, of course she's going to scream at bugs. Like there's nothing original done with the character. And that's where I find, it's just like, I don't know. It's just a colossal downgrade and almost insulting in its character writing coming off of Karen Allen's character.
Yeah, because it's so basic.
Yeah. Exactly. I feel like there's some spotty special effects on this one, which really pains me to say, coming from Lucas's team. That was nowhere close to a problem in any Lucasfilm or ILM production at the time. Two early examples are some sloppy B-roll used behind actors and a pretty noticeable reverse shot. just like Harrison Ford's performance, it has a lot of the problems I have with Return of the Jedi specifically. I hate to be,
That's fine. That's all right.
cross-pollinating on another Lucas franchise, but it's what I come from, and I just feel like Jedi coming a year before, these productions look very similar to me. Sometimes the ideas of what Lucas and Spielberg want to pull off in this film just don't match what the VFX can do. Luckily, that is not the case for the set design, and I think this is without a doubt why you should watch Temple of Doom. I would almost call those like VFX every now and again a little bit spotty, a total minor critique in relation to the prop and the set work. I really enjoyed everything in the palace, from the monkey brain dinner to the fantastic booby trap dungeon. This had me saying out loud, wow, what a movie set to be on. This felt like such a movie, Did you feel like it felt too much like set pieces, or did you think it felt like real life? I don't know if Indiana Jones does go after like a realism like that.
Okay.
But I think it's a good observation that maybe that could lose someone.
Yeah. Sometimes it just seems like I'm about to watch. It almost seems like that live action stage you're about to watch at Disney of some guy pretending to be Indiana Jones or something.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely.
But the locale is great for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that goes to show how just like iconic in a good way these sets are. The Temple of Doom is, I think it is the most recognizable Indiana Jones of the trilogy. You get the iconic shots of Indy reaching back for the hat as the stone wall is closing. You get a minecart sequence. You get the jungle savages popping out of the walls.
Yeah.
I feel like the iconography of Temple of Doom is so strong, despite being kind of wrapped up in not as good as a package, and maybe on the shoulders of the cast and whatnot.
I agree with that. I totally agree with the VFX stuff.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I remember watching as a kid and being like, that doesn't look the best. And boy, they look god awful now.
Yeah.
Definitely takes you out of it a bit.
Yeah. Some are good, though. I think specifically the set piece, once you're in the Temple of Doom, I gotta watch spoilers. My head's been so bird's eye view for this whole franchise. I gotta watch it. But once they're in the Temple of Doom, once they're
Agreed.
diving into the actual dungeon crawling that is the adventure films.
Yes, that's when it hits.
Yeah.
Because you got real stuff going on.
Right.
Yeah.
And almost hits stronger than any other of the trilogy. I just feel like booby traps as a concept are tied to Indiana Jones so strongly, and that's what Temple of Doom is about. It's about problem solving in a weird ruin.
Watching this, it's kind of funny how much of the film takes place inside of a building.
Yeah, true.
And in that way, it hurts itself, but because you're exploring through so much and you go, there's so many different elements to this cave/building and the attachments and how you get there, it works. But it's kind of funny how long it takes us to hit sunlight almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But then again, they built a really good set for them where they could just use practical effects in those scenes. The moment you get outside, that's when you're getting into the problems, like you said. Yeah.
Right. And it's especially beforehand. And I think that also adds to a little bit of the slow pacing in the beginning. It's like we don't have that strong of an objective for Indiana Jones.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And even once we're dealing with the stones and the magical stones and the different tribes, it's still a little rough. But what it makes up for is, I mean, just like iconic in a very good way. I always say iconic can either go both ways. It's either good or kind of a hindrance to it. These scenes in Temple of Doom are just stapled into pop culture, and I feel worthy of the legacy when they are playing out on screen. Is it a bit more silly? Sure. Does it abandon what worked best previously? Yeah. But Lucas and Spielberg try to make a new novelty that equally captures the feeling of these old adventure stories without using the same tricks, and I want to kind of reward that originality to it. We're going to go ahead and give Temple of Doom 1984 a 68.
Wow. Okay, it's a little bit lower than I thought.
Oh, really? Okay.
82. That's a bit of a drop off.
Sure.
From your 82 on Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm still glad. I'm fine with where you're at though. Here.
Okay.
Because I don't know, for this one, I still like Harrison in this. You know what I mean? So I'm not totally disappointed with his performance. She does get annoying. Willie can get annoying, and it brings it down and adds to a cheapness to the film.
It's a burden.
Not to bash on her so much.
Sure.
But just that tone that sets, that ridiculousness or cookie cutterness, it is a bit of a tone of the film that hurts it a bit. I found myself surprising with how quickly the movie was getting along, and I actually didn't like it for pacing. I was almost sitting there being like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, we're at this scene. Oh, we're at this scene already. Okay, well, this is happening already. These scenes were coming and going. These iconic scenes that I know from my childhood, just in my head, and yet they were coming and going so quickly that it's almost like each one was less important than I ever thought that they actually were.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, I felt this string of kind of unimportant things glued together for a film that had presumed a two-shoe, one lace. This is very much two shoes. That's what I'll give it right now.
Okay.
Let's get a Tommy two shoes, no laces. But that's kind of how I felt at the end. And very much like you said at the beginning of the film, we don't have a really great hook. You're not enamored from the get-go or in the first. It's a bit of a, your first 15, 20 minutes just to get into it. There's not something big there, and so the entire story just continues to develop, and that's it. It kind of comes and goes a little bit.
Yeah,
I still like Harrison. Short Round is phenomenal, and it does get dark. I mean, gets weird. This one really gets weird.
Absolutely.
Overall, still a pretty damn good movie.
Absolutely, and I think that's where I said, as far as like hardcore fans of this, I could see Temple of Doom very clearly being just as good as any of them, if not maybe even someone's personal favorite, because of how dark it gets, or just because how much it really hits the same beats of Raiders and Last Crusade, but just is a different flavor and original for that reason. It's not really rehashing anything, and that's where that originality was refreshing as well.
Do you think it was the way to go that that it was a prequel, that they started a year before the events of Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Like I said, I liked that. Maybe I think
it was smart.
Yeah.
I definitely think it was smart, because you could cast a new female lead.
Right.
You're not entirely wondering what the hell happened. You know what I mean?
You're not tied into the nostalgia bait, which even Last Crusade kind of falls into a pit with. So yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, let's just jump into it right away. This is 5 years later in 1989. These are still huge blockbuster hits. This is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Vin, how do we like it?
This is the one. This is the one with Sean Connery, I said.
Nerves? Were you nervous walking into it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I like Sean Connery in this. It was hard to process, and he was just such a big voice. I was personally saying, is Harrison going to get lost next to Sean Connery?
Okay, sure.
And I don't think that was the case, but that was just some kind of pre-notes to it. But I couldn't wait to watch this one, especially after the brief James Bond-style opening in Temple of Doom. 5 years later, we get Sean Connery, Bond in the white tux, basically, in the movie.
I thought you would like that.
Yeah. That's a fun bit of casting there, so I think that was really cool. In Last Crusade, Indiana Jones is informed of a search for possibly the greatest artifact in human history and myth alike, the Holy Grail. Indy is well familiar with the search for the Grail, not through his own exploits, but by the obsession of his father. And we follow Jones Sr.'s tracks leading right into our usual rivals' hands. Lucas and Spielberg got burnt on switching things up with Temple of Doom, so now we are back to the Nazis once again. You'll find that the Nazis are definitely the comfort zone of this franchise.
They're the best bad guy.
Right. So after the miss of Crystal Skull, which I think is no surprise, Crystal Skull had the Soviets. Dial of Destiny is definitely trying to claw back and get back to using the Nazis once again. We'll see if that's successful or not. We get a super solid opening sequence here. Without a doubt, the best opening sequence of the trilogy. I was in love with this. We get to see some much-needed backstory on Indy, a fun recap and reintroduction to his characteristics and his character traits, and most of all, our interest is pulled in not by a plot device, but by a character. I cannot stress enough how great structuring this story like this is, and is really some excellent screenwriting on Lucas's part. It's once again, like, Lucas is either in his real bad habits, or he's hidden. He's striking gold with it.
I think what helps so much is that Lucas and Spielberg were so together on this. You know what I mean? I mean, Lucas was on set most of the times, especially for these first 3 and everything like that. He approached Spielberg with the idea of wanting to do the Holy Grail. Spielberg didn't like it at first. Spielberg said it would only work, and he wanted to go off of the father and son thing. Spielberg was the one who wanted to bring in that second character.
Ah, interesting.
Because he thought that's what actually would make it hit. People. And it's exactly, that's your feeling exactly.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think the, this series is about MacGuffins, I think it's interesting, the Holy Grail being this, this legend that everyone knows, and also flirts with a religion that the whole franchise kind of, weaves in and out of, just dealing with these mythical artifacts. This pacing, this opening, this story structure was so excellent. Don't let this flashback fool you, though, folks. One of the best parts about this film is the pacing, because this script moves at a clip. Writing the story in this way lays a fantastic groundwork because it allows for Indy's objective to be his father initially. This gets us moving in the plot with instantly recognizable stakes. Everyone's got a dad. So when the MacGuffin shows up and it becomes more about the Grail, it's more fuel to just push things further. It's a second breath. We've already got good pacing going.
Yeah.
We find the father. Guess what? When it's about the Grail, then we're already, knee deep into the film, and we don't have to worry about, another startup or anything like that. It's this second breath, this fuel to the fire, and really, I mean, it is an excellent screenplay for that reason.
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
Again, something I kept on thinking about was, are you going to like the intro? Are you going to like how it bleeds in together? Would you say, just cut it and let's get through the story?
Sure.
I love it.
Yeah. Speaking of Papa Jones, Sean Connery is really great in this. It's a performance, I think, that rides the line of that fluid tone that I've been saying that the series nails. He is much more playful than I expected, but I think that's important. He can't just be this stern father. He can't just be this kind of obsessed archaeologist. He has to kind of fill the family beats as well, just as everyone fills.
Right. Where does Indiana get his smirks from, his one-liners from, and everything?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed these few years we get with Connery's acting in the late 80s. We, of course, covered 1987's The Untouchables on the podcast. And 1 year after this, we get the iconic The Hunt for Red October, which is... I personally think a great film. I've recently discovered not many people think that, but I love Hunt for Red October.
No, he's on a stretch right here. He finished up those Bond films, and around this time, is that when he did the off-brand Bond?
I think so.
Literally around these same exact years, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
But he's still on fire here with these films.
Yeah. And his interaction with Harrison Ford in this is very entertaining. It's playful, it's father-son relationship, but it's also competitive in this new versus old adventuring style. It's probably a terrible comparison, but really reminded me of Austin Powers Goldmember, which is obviously ripping this off. But again, I'm new to Indiana Jones.
I love that, man. That didn't pop in my head once.
Yeah. Which, shows that I really have never seen these movies. So.
So did you think Harrison could hold his own then?
Yes. Harrison Ford, he's got a little bit of that bit of goofiness, but most of that just comes from these kind of father-son jokes in the script. The story is able to balance the no-strings-attached episodic fun of another adventure with Indiana Jones, while still giving us a peek at the character background. And I think Harrison is able to bring just enough of our attention to that. I think in the next two films, we get, once again, kind of lost in the sauce with Indy's backgrounds. What is he doing this year? What is he doing? It's a bit too much scrutinized. Here, Harrison is able to just give us little bits about Indy. We don't need major character arcs or revelations or anything like that. We just need maybe a little bit more to develop the character, and that's what we get with Last Crusade. I greatly prefer these kind of sprinklings of development to the major lore commitments, and I really mean commitments, of the next two films.
And that's what I'm saying. So, for instance, in this film with River Phoenix playing young Indy, you've got no problem with that.
No,
Okay.
no.
It's in, it's out, it's fun. And
Yeah. I liked how strategic that intro was, as well as introducing us to the Indiana Jones tropes. He doesn't like snakes. He finds the whip,
Right.
That could be seen as cliche, but it's also good shorthand to just catch us up to what Indiana Jones is doing and focus on, let's find the dad.
So Harrison was even on set during all that, just to even coach him a little bit
Oh,
to try to get him
that's
close
great.
to Indy. But it's so funny. You can see this as such an episodic thing.
Yeah.
It's no wonder why they turned it into a show in the early 90s,
Right.
which they asked River Phoenix to do, but he turned it down.
Interesting. And I obviously saw this on Disney Plus, them pulling from it. I mean, was the show good? You said you watched some of it?
As a kid, I liked it. If I return to it now, I don't know.
Right.
There was a couple different guys who played Indy.
Okay.
One of them was who we covered in Nefarious, the guy in Boondock Saints as well.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, he played the young Indy then.
Okay.
Another thing with age, because we're dealing with 3 different ages here, because we have young Indy, then we have Indy, and then we have Indy's dad.
Right.
Sean Connery and Harrison Ford, only 12 years apart. But
No way.
It totally works,
Yeah.
dad and son.
Yeah.
It does a great job with it.
Absolutely.
And I just wanted to make a comment of Harrison Ford's physique. It's hilarious to me. The first one comes out, and he's around 40 years old. It's let's not get the 28-year-old. We'll go with 40-year-old Harrison. Love it. Yeah. But even Temple of Doom, he has his shirt off at one point, and he's just believably fit.
Right.
And it's just kind of nice to see.
Yeah.
It's not like Tom Holland in
Spider-Man.
Uncharted or Spider-Man.
Oh, right,
Where you
right.
can practically see at the side of a frame an entire crew of people, of nutritionists and workout people and body, and you know what I mean?
I think you bring up a good point because he's not also 80s buff either, which could be
No.
such a cookie cutter thing about it.
He just seems fit because he's used to traveling
Right,
and doing
right.
crazy stuff.
Right.
And he's just, and he's a professor.
Yeah.
The believability was really just kind of nice,
I think
honestly.
that's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. And, no one's going to tell Harrison Ford what to do either. If there's anything that the later movies will show us. All the production and VFX woes of the previous film, I would say, are mostly gone here. Both the concept of the set pieces and their implementation are vastly improved upon. We get some great action set pieces, mainly just multiple stellar chase sequences with excellent stunt work. And not to mention what I think is a secret ingredient to my enjoyment, any scene with a tank.
Oh, you're finding that you...
Yeah, anytime a tank runs over and crushes something metal, I'm like, all right, I'm here. This is my lizard brain activating. So I guess that's a weak spot for me. Even flashing back to the Fast and Furious movies, there's still some spotty B-roll playing behind actors occasionally. Specifically, there is an air sequence that they just could not do, but it uses it a bit more sparingly, and I think looks better as a result. Again, the criticism is only mildly a carryover in that Lucas and Spielberg obviously have huge ambitions for the idea and the concept behind Indiana Jones and the type of adventures he goes on. When it comes down to that, sometimes they just do not have the implementation. And if Lucasfilm and ILM cannot do it, no one can at the time. So it's more of a judgment on maybe don't work that into the plot, maybe don't work that into the production.
Yeah.
So
I know, because when the practical stuff is there, which is a lot in this, it's so nice.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just great.
Absolutely. And especially with those chase sequences, they flip a motorcycle at one point, and it's just so visceral and fast, and you feel like they wrecked that bike that day on set, and that just feels great.
A lot different to the newer films, huh?
Yeah. But yeah, folks, it just so snappy, so fun, and still has, again, for this trilogy, that fluid tone that makes a great movie for all ages. I really see this as the true sequel to Raiders, and makes a double feature, or as we say on the ratings, a double header.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to use it as much as possible. We're going to go ahead and give Last Crusade 1989 a 75.
Wow, a 75. I am loving this episode. Okay.
Yeah.
75, a great score. And I've heard that a lot from people, too, where it's do Raiders of the Lost Ark and then Last Crusade. I have heard that a lot.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of cut out that middle one and you'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you're in love, really love the series, that's when you dip into Temple of Doom. For a while this week, Temple of Doom was probably going to be a 70 on the dot. But I just think as I sat with it, I don't know, the iconicness did not outweigh my actual enjoyment of characters. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Can I make 2 more notes just
Yeah.
real quick at Temple of Doom?
Oh, before we get into Crystal Skull.
One, it has one of my favorite scenes in single shots. One of my favorite in all of cinema.
Okay.
So Gandalf has one in Return of the King.
Sure.
He has one on the bridge when he's holding the sword. It's just a great still that I've always really loved.
And another moment where he speaks Cantonese or to short round.
You personally, I forgot. I'm sorry, I forgot to say this when we were reviewing the film.
All right.
The beginning of Temple of Doom when we have Willie singing.
Yeah.
Did you also have in your mind White Christmas? And this scene with Mandy, the song Mandy.
Definitely, it was trying to capture a scene like
You're
that.
damn right. I'm telling you right now. Spielberg watched White Christmas and thought, I got to do something like that in this film.
We got to do that.
You should go back and watch that scene and then watch Mandy. I'm just saying, folks. I'm just saying.
Well, not Mandy, but watch that sequence. Yeah.
Watch the Mandy sequence in White Christmas,
and
then watch the opener to Temple of Doom. That's all. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. That's so great.
Okay, all right, Vince. So we'll keep things moving here. It's been 20 years, 19 years. We're in 2008 now. This is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Talk of the town. Back then,
so true.
Back then, the talk of the town was he's 65. Oh my gosh, he's 65 years old. Look at him. I mean, we're approaching 70. How is he going to do? Is he going to do his all his own stuff?
Yeah.
Anyway, Vin, how did we like Crystal Skull?
Well, I mean, this, like I said, was the only movie of the series I've even slightly seen, and honestly, it kept me away from the series for years. If anything, it just kind of reinforced my young kind of hipsterish, snot nose opinion that like, I like Star Wars. I don't need Indiana Jones, and this movie being the internet punching bag for years had me super excited to sit down with this and, call my heads or tails on it. So folks, get comfortable. It's a doozy. I had to push the Dial of Destiny review to a separate note. So pour yourself a drink from your favorite Dan Aykroyd Crystal Skull vodka bottle and buckle up. It's a doozy. In Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, we follow Indy that is much older, has experienced a lot since the last time we've seen him, off-screen and what's kind of explored on-screen, but still has a thirst for adventure. When an ambitious Soviet spies raid a U.S. base, he gets wrapped up in a search for the Crystal Skulls, a Spanish artifact that would be impossible to carve and resembles no human skull. Stylistically, man, this film... it looks so bad.
It looks terrible.
It looks so bad.
I watched this film.
Yeah. Well, like this week?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It looks terrible.
Yeah.
It looks
like,
so
why does it
bad.
look so bad?
Really disappointing.
Yeah.
From what was such great set designs and just such great practical work. When those VFX do come in and they're disappointing, the point is that they're there, but they're quickly gone.
Right.
Here, it's rough.
It's a ring on it. The sequences last so long. I'll talk about the endless jungle hallway, but I mean, like, it doesn't even feel like a real space.
I completely agree.
Yeah, and
this is still Spielberg.
Yeah.
That's what I kept on asking myself and telling myself.
So true.
This is actually Spielberg still.
And that's why he's got a little bit of a bad reputation of, like, sometimes it's gold, sometimes it's bad. Stylistically, though, this film is the first time we see Indy in some sort of Americana, and with this pulling from... we covered it last week, a similar Roswell aesthetic of the 1950s. One of the worst parts is just this corny-ass writing all over the script. Lucas is in his worst habits as a writer here, and production-wise, this is not too far from the worst habits we saw in the prequels, in kind of just this echo chamber of CG. This late 50s-ness is totally a tie to what he explored in American Graffiti, which feels like a retread, especially with Shia LaBeouf's character. But seriously, certain scenes are just so corny and painfully generic. It really has no surprises to offer to the audience. This is where it was a repeat of our punching bag, Willie in Temple of Doom, that the jokes, how she's used as a character feel generic. I would imagine even feeling generic for when this came out.
Right.
This here,
it's every character.
It's every character just feels so generic, Indy included. And man, for an adventure film, no less the adventure film franchise, that's catastrophically bad as a quality.
I completely agree. It falls on. It's flat.
Yeah.
And that's just kept on coming to mind. This film is flat.
Yeah.
It was shocking how every character didn't feel important, didn't have some sort of realism or even charisma about them, or it was manufactured characters that just didn't feel real at all.
Yeah.
Across the board.
Absolutely. And even the things that say, like Indy says at one point, like, kid, you bought a knife to a gunfight. It's just like, it's the most predictable lines. If you had to bet on the moment to moment how each scene plays out, guess what? You're winning.
I know. And returning to the IP 20 years later, it's just, where was the care or the consideration?
Yeah.
All of these lines were just like, you kidding me? I mean,
right.
Everything that Indy says almost.
It's cliche.
It really can just suck.
Yeah. And that's what I mean, like this corny writing. Like, it's just like...
Big time corny. I'm surprised Lucas even wanted to have his name attached to this. There's two other writers, so who knows how, who had the heavier hand.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, it's shocking the difference of these films.
Yeah.
For how many of the same players are involved.
Absolutely.
Unbelievably different.
Absolutely. I hate to say it, but Spielberg is off his game here as well. It's interesting how long scenes will hold uncut. But I think it really leans to more boring scenes. My perfect example here is Indy finding a conquistador temple. He finds this, and the scene setup is, it's him, Shia LaBeouf, looking around the room. He finds the conquistador, he unwraps it, and then all in the same shot, all in the same portrayal of the of the scene, uncut, he then has to act surprised and turn to Shia LaBeouf and say, "Oh, this is our guy. This is our guy." And it's just like, man, I'm not searching for an over amount of editing, but the fact that there was no cut to make it a little snappier, if anything, just for the reveal when he turns to Shia, it just feels like, man, they just put this camera rolling and just did nothing to it. You look at Spielberg's editing tricks for the original trilogy, and it's just mind-blowing how plain these scenes are, and I think it adds to the boringness of the film.
Yes, one of many things that add to the boringness. What's funny is, going back, and I'm going to put it in the newsletter coming up.
Sure.
There was a breakdown. Soderbergh made the Raiders of the Lost Ark. He just switched it to black and white, basically, and then there was some guy just talking about stylistic choices, breaking down Spielberg.
Sure.
Through this one video, I had so much more respect for Spielberg. It's not a faraway trait for him to stay long cuts and move around the camera and everything like that, and it really works. With this, it almost just seemed lazy and not good. There's a way to do it that he's done in the past that just was not hitting at all.
Yeah. And in the 2000s, Spielberg, maybe I'll put this with a grain of salt, but Spielberg, I feel, becomes a little obsessed with the Spielberg Wonder, his own legacy of doing uncut takes, but not like in a major way. He's just trying to get like these medium-sized wonders. I feel like that was on display here, but really added, again, that Conquistador tomb scene is the best example I could call to of just like, why wasn't there just one edit in here?
You want to talk about surprising. That scene? Even talk about that scene more. They stay at that location for way too long.
No, sure.
I feel like we're at locations for too long, let alone just scenes.
Right. I'll tell you what, that's Dial of Destiny to a T. Staying in locations too long. The film has a big problem with plausibility, and that is extremely apparent from our opening sequence. We are introduced right off the bat to psionic Russian soldiers and a nuke going off, so not exactly the stakes that we're used to for a good old Indy, It's a little bombastic. This movie thinks it has a high-octane opening sequence, but the fact is that the plot is utterly directionless for the first solid 40 minutes. Know the legacy of this film is that first half is good, last half is bad. I thought it was kind of opposite.
I'm not saying opposite. I'm telling you right now, it's opposite.
Really? Wow.
I felt the same exact way.
Interesting.
In my head, I wasn't breaking it up in acts. I just felt beginning of the movie or first half and then second half is how I looked at it.
Interesting.
Second half sucks. I mean, God, oh my God,
it all sucks for sure. But
talk about a way too long of a scene of a fake sword fight between Shia LaBeouf and what's her face on fake CGI trucks. I mean, truly just god awful. I mean, take this, please. Just skewer me with the sword and kill me so I don't have to finish this film.
It's so great.
Still, though, second half of the film is just better. I
Yeah.
actually think that there's some type of rhythm that feels like an old-style kind of Indiana Jones rhythm that actually gets going.
Interesting.
And that I appreciate.
Yeah.
There's elements of Indiana Jones here. It's just, it's almost like they're trying to do whatever they can to stop it feeling like an actual indie film.
Or a good movie, for that matter.
Totally agree, though. Second half over first.
Yeah. And maybe in that regard, I'll give similar praise to Temple of Doom, that I want to reward a little bit of originality, that it's just not Nazis again.
Okay.
You know, the whole point of these serials is that it's another adventure with the character, you know, and those are going to be wild and those are going to be very different and maybe also not hit on quality.
I was okay with the Soviet plot a little bit. I don't know if I was okay with Kate Blanchett, but I was okay with if those were going to be the bad guys, I was cool with.
Yeah.
But no one was good. The FBI agents that were douchebags, they weren't good.
Yeah.
The ridiculous Soviet agents that approach him and Shia in like the soda pop bar or whatever like that. It's like, are we making a mockery of Indiana Jones right now?
right. But let's talk about the look of this film, and that's going to encompass lighting and CGI. Wow, does the lighting in this film date it very, very badly. This looks and feels older than even the original trilogy. It feels old in a shot in the foot type of way. It has ruined it for itself with the lighting in this production. Stylistically, I would say this belongs in a camp similar to 2004's Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, or even 1997's The Rocketeer. Don't know these.
No.
Really? Interesting. Okay. Well,
I'm
great,
excited for the breakdown. Yeah.
They have this like super bright, clearly studio lighting that is taken as a style, and I guess that was maybe done here. Part of what adds to this is just this very late 2000 era green screen. I think most of the sets are decent to good, but every now and again you'll just catch a fake background that just soils the whole thing. The jungle race sequence that is just an endless CGI hallway is my perfect example once again here.
It feels like it lasts 15 minutes.
Doesn't even feel like a jungle road. You know, it's a straight road, you know? And it's just like, it goes on forever.
Just the worst.
They are like trapped in purgatory. It's so bad.
It was god awful.
Yeah. And in that, it feels like episode 2 Star Wars, like how the CGI is just like, this is unacceptable.
Hey, it's been 15 years, but 15 years ago, it looked bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, what are you guys doing?
Absolutely.
Get Lucas out of the effects room. Just, just torch it. Practical, baby. Practical.
Absolutely. And what's a shame is that you actually see after that in the malt shop scene with Shia and Harrison, that chase through the college town, pretty decent because it's done somewhat real.
Right.
But man, this endless jungle hallway, I will have nightmares about it, folks. It was terrible.
And it was terrible. And by the way, there was also a lot of other terrible stuff in it with the CGI stuff. Anything involving the boat and just, I mean, this green screens that just stick out like terrible CGI.
You can just spot them.
Great point on the lighting. You can almost see. I personally like when it just comes to images, or if I have my phone, like when it comes to phones, computers, I like an oversaturated image. I tend to go with that. It's just all the way back from being a Samsung phone guy. I like oversaturation. I like poppy colors. I like vibrancy. But the problem is, you're right, though. They do it here, and it's just
too much.
I think they're going for a good-looking, clean, crisp effect, and it's just some type of overprocessed fake studio.
It looks artificial. It looks dated, most importantly. Yeah. There's also a lot of 3D integration artifacts. They knock the gun.
The squirting of the bug.
And folks, I got an old 3D TV. I mean, I'm the idiot for having it. It was pinging every time. So I
put your glasses on.
I don't think there's batteries in it still.
Probably could have helped it by 10%. The score.
Yeah, for real. Back to that lighting a little bit. You know, everything is just so yellow or gold. The lighting is at the very top of the characters. I don't think it looks good at all. This movie has jaundice. This movie is like an early Instagram filter. Like, that is how yellow it is. Yeah. The lighting is from the very top, and it's just so distracting because you can see it on Shia's hair, gleaming in every scene like a fucking lighthouse. It's ridiculous. The whole movie just takes place in perpetual high noon. Like, where is this lighting coming from? I could maybe play devil's advocate and say this was a stylistic choice. They were trying to create this like golden age of indie kind of comic serial vibe, but once again, I just don't think it looks good, and it really dates the film.
Yeah, I think they're going for sharpness as well. The problem is when you have lighting like this, even scenes, even when you have real textile type things, like real things, and not dealing with a lot of CGI, it makes the real stuff look fake.
Yeah,
because it has this polish to it. That's what this bad lighting does. Like, even to the point the way people are dressed or something, everything just seems fake. Yeah. It's terrible. It's what I have an issue with Hobbit. With the Hobbit. With
very good call. Absolutely.
But that's caused by the 60 frames per second.
Sure, but similar with some lighting issues as well.
Where I'm like, it's like I'm looking at a real tablecloth, but why does it look fake?
Why does it look bad?
And that's not a good thing to have. Yeah. Especially with Indiana Jones, when it's supposed to have a realism, a grittiness to it, much like George Lucas said in that script that when they sat down storyboarding, and the one thing he made a speech about how believable he wants it to be.
That's so amazing. He's eating his words. That's so funny. The last thing I'll bring up is the nostalgia bait thrown in this film. It's actually very interesting to watch this. I was trying to track back. Was there something that tried to do our modern form of nostalgia bait from the 2010s this early? I think this very well be a originator in some ways in 2008 of...
Like bringing back old IP?
Yeah, like a playbook of how you do nostalgia bait, bringing it in. I don't think it's good. But I think it's very reminiscent of later films to come in the next decade.
Okay.
So, to a certain extent, it was a good quality in Last Crusade when some nostalgia bait came through, but how it's done here, I just don't care for. It didn't help me. It definitely didn't help me being a new fan, and even watching them all together.
Yeah.
So, folks, I think at this point in my watching, I realized the fluctuating quality in the series is inevitable. Like those serials it was spawned from, not every story was a winner. In real comics, not every story is a winner. The adventure stories have to pull and surprise us in new ways, and that requires going in bold directions. I personally don't mind the Crystal Skulls as our latest installment of adventures with Indy, but I feel Indy needed to develop with the stories as well, especially with him being older. And if anything, we only regress backwards with the character. We're going to go ahead and give the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull 2008 a 34.
Ooh.
Yeah.
34.
Believe the hype.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you made that note in the end saying about the story, because the entire time I was like, I'm cool with the Crystal Skulls.
Right.
Please do
I'm cool
anything.
with Dan Aykroyd.
Right, anything different. I mean, they took what could have been just a good, funny, ridiculous story dealing with Crystal Skulls, and they did everything wrong.
Yeah.
And spent way too much time on this, way too much time with that. Shia LaBeouf was terrible. Harrison Ford's not caring or whatever. Yeah. But then again, the script wasn't there either.
Yeah.
Man, I'm not gonna give it.
Really?
I'm not gonna give it anything. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm so
Which in itself is more of an insult than even a low Tommy Two Shoes.
I mean, it probably should get a 0 shoes, but
maybe a flip flop.
I can't bring myself. No, it would be like I don't even know, a freaking a Shia LaBeouf hair comb or something like that. This stupid film,
a worn out boot.
But okay, 34% for the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Vin. Okay, dropping off here, folks. Just as a reminder, we are going off the value for value model, and what that means is, we have the podcast, the newsletter, and the website. Do you find that valuable? Are you enjoying it? Or is it just part of your life now? Is that a good thing? The point is, that's value in your pocket. Can you give us some value back in ours? It's through monetary support. So you go to thedailyratings.com, you head over to the donations tab, and through your monetary support, 1, you show us that you're getting value, and 2, you're becoming an official, actual producer of the Daily Ratings. And when you send a donation in, you can go ahead and write a note along with it, and we're going to read it right here in this segment of the podcast. Again, you can become a producer. It's a real credit in your name. It's at dailyratings.com. We just thank all of you who have produced in the past, and hopefully we'll produce soon in the future. We're coming up to our big 100th episode. We're 10 eps away.
It's surreal.
It's
500 movies on recording.
It is surreal, yeah. And this is a great episode. This is a lot of fun. We have great content coming out in the future as well, folks. We see the numbers ticking up, and like I try to say every episode, another way to produce right now is just get the word out. You hear people talking in the store. You hear your family talking about a movie. Get us in the conversation conversation, that's where we want to be. We appreciate you all so much. Again, so dailyratings.com and head to the donations tab. Okay, Vin. All right, so
here we go.
Spielberg's out of the picture now.
Out. He's kicked to the curb.
And this is our 5th film. This is our in theaters now. This is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, 15 years later in 2023, directed by James Mangold. We'll get into it right away. I watched this film.
What? I had to see it. We should have gone together.
I saw this. I knew I wasn't going to have any time. I watched because I worked so much this weekend.
Yeah. We both were super busy.
I saw this by myself Thursday night, 10 o'clock
This is an early showing.
I know. 10 p.m. by myself. Fighting to stay awake, Finn, and I mean fighting to stay awake in my comfortable Dolby Atmos cinema chair. Try to keep it a secret. No one told you, I hope,
No,
right?
No.
Okay, good.
Wow.
And I'm ready to talk about it.
Okay.
But let's get into it right away, Ben. How did you like Dial of Destiny?
Well, Dial of Destiny, man, it's a weird beast. It is a corpse. It is a walking necromancy of this is a zombie of zombies. Tom, we will see how AARP card holder Harrison Ford, what he can do here. Unfortunately, the vortex of old man jokes have really carried over from the previous film. This was already being done in Crystal Skull. So, like I will note, there's nothing done to write a story around that concept, and it feels really washed out when it comes to Indy's characters specifically, because we've done the old man jokes already, and now there's just more old man jokes.
Do you think it was that many old man jokes? I'm not going to lie. Like, even in the talk of this film for the past, 8 months that we've been getting. Sure. I even had one article in the newsletter saying that, like, Harrison Ford specific, he wanted no old man jokes in the script.
Oh.
They weren't going for him at all.
He said
apparently.
My back.
Right.
that's the one. I was not about that aspect, especially because, again, I saw that they did barely anything with it with George Lucas's, corny writing. I was hoping maybe they could do something new with it here, but it really is just the same. So, as much as this episode has been the same legacy talent in the production department, we get a big shakeup for writers and director. James Mangold has had a decent directing career so far. Two faves of mine being 2005's Walk the Line and, of course, contender for probably best superhero movie, 2017's Logan. So, some serious talent behind the lens on here. And Lucas is kicked to the curb. Only John Williams got held back in high school. He's the oldest kid in the class.
Did they not want to be a part of it? Were they asked not to do it?
Yeah,
or it's just they have their
Disney
money?
Probably just didn't call Lucas. has been their strategy.
I think they were such a team that if one wasn't in, they both weren't in.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And Williams, I guess, wanted the check. But folks, never underestimate a franchise revival shitting the bed, because with this new talent, very little new is infused into this story. And if there's anything that is the crux of why I don't like this movie, is that the story around Indiana Jones being older, being at the end of his career, is not integral to what happens. It is shoving an 80-year-old sized block into a adventure shape, basically.
I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it. You see, in 2000, I'm going to do a lot of comparisons probably to Crystal Skull.
Okay,
because they just belong kind of at
yeah,
separate
they definitely
thing.
are paired.
Man, Crystal Skull, it's just, he's getting up in age, definitely. I wish the movie was made 10 years prior, in 98, rather than 08.
Sure.
Because I think that still would have been aging Jones, but not quite there yet.
Yeah.
He still would have been quick-witted, fast and talking. It would have just matched a little bit better. Man, this one, it's so unnecessary.
Yeah.
They're getting rid of the best traits completely.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones is excitingly curious. Like, he's into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's into archaeology, and he loves figuring stuff out. He literally gets excited about it. It pushes him to keep going. He's confident and cool. You know what I mean? He's lost all confidence.
You're right.
He's lost all cool.
Yep.
He doesn't have that excitability. In fact, he's completely beaten down.
Yeah.
I don't like that they did that to him. And he is the authority. He lost all authority in this film, and he lost responsibility. every single time throughout these films, even with the Crystal Skulls, there's time where he goes, I'll take care of this. You guys don't have to come or something like that.
Right.
He's very good at taking responsibility or action. In Temple of Doom, it's just like he doesn't have to go and get the stones. And yet he's like, I'm going to go down and get the stones. Like, I want to bring it back to the village type thing. He's always about taking action, taking responsibility, taking care of things. All of that is gone. His cool is gone. His excitement about the passion about
he becomes the drag.
Right. They took away all the good elements, the good traits that why we love Indiana.
Yeah.
And totally stripped it from him. And
Absolutely.
It was sad.
Yeah. That's what I mean by it's a corpse.
No
one was asking for it. You know, people are talking in the media, are movies dying? We had a disappointing release for a franchise no one asked for and a terrible kids movie that looked like the worst thing ever from a trailer.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, to take a tangent once again, I've been hearing that comment, like, well, this is not a good year for movies, not what we thought. And I'm over here being like, this is not bad year.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think John Wick did pretty well.
Yeah.
Mario,
Spider-Verse good?
Yeah, Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Mario, I mean, movies that we could all assume were doing pretty bad.
Absolutely.
Bad. I mean, I don't understand the big confusion here.
Yeah, so I don't know. But when it comes to it's really washed out, and that's what I mean by zombie, by the necromancy of bringing back something that no one asked for.
You're totally right.
In Dial of Destiny, we build upon the lore that was revealed in Crystal Skull of what Indy did in World War II to earn an even greater legacy. This rips off the beginning structure from Last Crusade, where we get an inciting incident in the flashback, which means we are also back to the tried and true bad guys, the Nazis. In a train heist gone wrong, Indy steals an ancient Greek artifact from a feverish Nazi mathematician played by Mads Mikkelsen, the Dial of Archimedes. We flash forward to the late 60s, where we spend the remaining time with the film, where Indy is retiring from being a professor and about to hang up his hat. But he is visited by his goddaughter Helena, dusting off the interest for the Dial and inviting in old foes he left behind in the war. That really is our setup here, and oh boy, Harrison Ford is seriously aged in this. I mean, you know, writing these constant old man jokes, that kind of works, I guess. He's grumpy, he's one note, but I will say he could have been much worse. Especially with me, that I'm not holding any punches with Harrison. My critique is that these jokes are just so played out. It's barely a reason to bring Indy back. Like, what are the reasons to bring Indy back in this film? I just feel like if you want to resurrect a legend, you have to have a story evolve with it, and that's where that carryover criticism comes from Crystal Skull. This movie is only hindered by forcing an 80-year-old man into the same adventured mold, a problem the previous movie had 15 years ago and was relentlessly criticized for. So to have no awareness of that in the production team is particularly troubling. Like, this is what makes it feel like a cash grab. There also is a little bit of an aspect of this trying to be like 2021's No Time to Die, the James Bond film, where Indy gets a bit more of a character payoff towards the end, but it's pretty much delivered in one or two lines and needed to be clocked up a lot more if that was the intention of the story. There's a lot of things the story does, and none of them really well. So that was just one aspect I think that maybe showed some promise of trying to tell a grizzled and older version of Indy, but ultimately went nowhere. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, I mean, one of my biggest issues was he didn't have that excited curiosity about things. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, he still had that in his blood. He was even like, there's always a shot of him teaching. He still had this good drive with teaching and everything like that. He was about the material still. In this, again, like I said, boom, they stripped it from him. And now he's just sad. It's gone. It's lost. Again, it's dredging out this 80-year-old.
Yeah.
You're right. It could have been worse. I didn't even hate the way he looked all too much. Harrison is finally starting to look more aged now.
Right.
He hit 80. You can just see it in his face a little bit.
Yeah.
He still moves okay, but he is aged. I mean, he had his shirt off again in this one. I was like, he looks okay for 80 years old. I was like, damn, he's looking pretty good. But man, they touch, like you said, maybe a line or two. They have beats of what maybe could be good. They don't care about it. They don't touch on it too long.
It's a throwaway.
Right. It's a throwaway, and that's a big shame. Yeah. Because for how god-awful this story was, it could have been saved with a lot more of those elements.
Yeah, I think so. It has the promise of maybe going in an interesting direction, but doesn't.
Absolutely,
so,
yeah.
Indy's goddaughter, Helena, is a lot. That's the note. She's a lot. I wouldn't say not necessarily a poorly written character, just hijacks some scenes just way too much from Indy. I don't think the performance was bad either. Phoebe Waller-Bridge rides a line of arrogant and funny that is definitely on brand for, the fluid tone that I've mentioned so much, but moments she has takes away from the much-needed spark that should have been designated to Indiana Jones to give him some life on screen. There is a boat scene where she is deciphering a tablet for the bad guys, and it was just a waste of time. And honestly, at worst, works against her own character writing. The outcome of it is that she sacrifices too much information to the villains, which is contrary to her arrogant and sharp kind of capitalistic vibe that the character was shoving down our throats and saying over and over again. So, walking into this film, the only thing I heard about it was people hated this character, like really hated this character. And honestly, I can see why. I don't think I hate her for the reasons of just the actress or the performance or even the writing, but it's especially those scene-stealing aspects. She robbed the
whole movie! It was the whole, to say it. She robbed the whole movie.
And specifically scenes that needed to be indie focused to say, hey, this is an Indiana Jones film.
The only thing that was missing was her having to give him a sponge bath or something at some point. I mean, it was ridiculous.
I love that. That's
and
good.
The actress, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, by the way, we talked in the past when we talked about fourth wall breaking films, Ferris Bueller and stuff.
Yep.
She's in a show called Fleabag.
Okay.
She does it great.
Oh,
She's a great actress in that. I don't hate the actress. I hate this character. What they did to Indiana Jones is terrible.
Yeah.
Like,
he's second fiddle.
I got to be honest with you. Loving Indiana Jones, I was excited for more material because it's more material, knowing I'm sure that they're going to botch it. But just the fact that we were going to get something else, the possibility of it being good. 80 years old, just oh man. They stripped them of anything. Like, they just replaced Indiana Jones. They replaced Indiana Jones, and in the means, it was a slap in the face to the character. Harrison Ford ought to be ashamed for letting that kind of crap happen. And for the script. I don't know. I know he's trying to do as much material as possible. He's still in good, even though he's aging, he's still in good health. Right. So he's on a tear right now, doing as much content as possible. But man, this was a huge letdown. With how much Indy took a backseat in his own franchise.
Yeah, total Black Widow syndrome. That he's just he takes
and it's just sorry. It's just you need the female lead and everything like that. I understand how movies are today, but boy, was it just terrible.
Yeah, and that's where I maybe disagree with some of the criticism online. People are really taking their knives out on the actress, on the character writing specifically. I didn't mind that stuff. It's just how the character is used and how much it just... Indy is already, this is a mountain they have to get over to make it worth resurrecting this franchise. Scenes that could have been awesome for Indy to have are not given to him. They're not parceled out to the right people.
Not at all, and I would agree with you. I think the writing is better in this. I can't believe I'm saying it. I think the writing is better maybe than this than Kingdom of Skull.
Yes.
But I still hate the writing. Like, I don't really like her writing. I don't like any of the writing all too much.
Absolutely.
I have to say, something that was so great about Top Gun Maverick was you had, like, the love story that was in it was among, like, two mid-40-year-olds. You look at Kingdom Skull, you had people in their 60s, and that's where the love story was, even how it ends and everything like that. And I just would have loved to see Karen Allen a bunch in this film. I don't need some young chick in here or anything like that. Karen Allen and Harrison Ford had great chemistry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish they would have utilized that.
Yeah. And it certainly would have been on brand for some of the nostalgia bait stuff as well. So, as far as our opposition, Mads Mikkelsen might be a saving grace for this film. I really do love Mads as our main Nazi villain, but he lacks believability in how he operates as a bad guy. The film takes some leaps, and I mean leaps, folks, in what strings he can pull. All at once, he has sway over the CIA, Moroccan military, and seems to have an endless amount of money. He hands over a fistful of diamonds. Where is this disenfranchised Nazi getting this fistful of fucking diamonds? The plausibility was a problem in Crystal Skull, but honestly, I think it got worse here. Mikkelsen is just showing up wherever the plot needs him to be without any explanation. And the lines that they throw in there are just so throwaway. They go in a different direction in a boat, and there's just he shows up on screen. He says, "Oh, they're going west."
I know, it was so bad.
I was just like, "What? I'd just rather you not say anything."
And his crew was rough. His crew that he had. I mean, I still continue to like Boyd Holbrook.
Yes, that's the guy from Logan.
Yeah. But. Man, no thank you. Thank you. And it hurt
Tough.
Mads Mikkelsen as well, where he's not even the main bad guy in Bond, kind of. And he plays a great Bond villain.
Oh, yeah.
So I was hoping for Bond villain-esque. Just no.
Yeah. He has a little bit towards the beginning when he's talking to the news reporter, but yeah, he just the plausibility just goes out the window.
I don't think you can blame him for him. I think it's just the format of the film.
Right, absolutely. It's not really in the performance; it's in the structure.
For sure.
More so than anything, 2 hours and 30 minutes does not feel great for Indiana Jones, and definitely not for this movie specifically, especially when every gun is pointed at Indy and someone swats it away. It robs so much lethality from the action. I'm not kidding. This happens at least 4 times, that someone points a gun at Indy and there is an excuse in some way of someone grabbing the gun and saying, no. It just happens again and again. And when some real harming of character takes place, it's just no issue either. They're just people get shot, they're around for another 30 minutes. It's cool. All right. Why have guns at all in the plot, The amount of punches to the face this 80-year-old man takes, he should be flat out dead. He gets some cold clocks in his face. It's just man, he's done. What are you doing? There is a very thick middle portion that crawls in its pacing, and basically that whole boating section I mentioned with Helena. And seriously, there's just no reason for this to be so long. It makes the whole experience a solid notch worse.
It's so long. What really annoyed me while watching it was this movie thinks it's fast-paced. By the, 3 dozen chase scenes that we have.
Yeah.
I mean, because of his age, it's we can't do other kinds of action. So it's
good point.
Put him in a vehicle, put him on just a chase scene, more chase scenes, more chase scenes. I understand the chase scenes in almost basically all of the Indiana Jones, because there is. But man, just way too many in this one. Yeah. And again, it thinks it's fast paced. It's we're going to this location, but it's not, because it all looks like crap. First of all, it's all CGI mess. It's got no real feelings for it.
Interesting.
And then by the end of it, like you said, you're in this middle slog. And you're just oh my God. I mean, I was fun. I had to go get Nerds gummies to get some sugar so I could stay awake. It's ridiculous.
And there's definitely portions. I wouldn't blame you for that. There's definitely portions you can skip away.
One scene started. Of course, I had to go to the bathroom at one point. And one scene started. And, man, I lately I have not been wanting to get up out of my seat and leave a film. Or trying to guess.
Especially if we're doing this critically. Yeah.
Right. Also, just trying to guess where. Well, but do I need to see this? Do I not need to see this?
Right.
As soon as this one scene started, I was like, I know I've got time on my hands. And sure enough, I had plenty of time.
Because you came back for it.
I came back, and we were still in the middle of the same exact scene.
Oh, wow.
Way too drawn out. This should have been right around the 2-hour mark like all the other 4.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it also falls into the same nostalgia pits as Crystal Skull, and in a lot of ways more soulless in what was done in 2008 already. Just like those old jokes, it's just retread of what we were already doing, and most importantly, what the production was critiqued for 15 years prior. To not learn from mistakes is a particular failure of this. The action, I would say, I felt it looked decent, but loses me for the same plausibility issues that lost me with our villain motivation and our villain agency. This film feels like it's trying to wow you so desperately that it makes the big stunts feel a little bit numb. I mean, just almost every one of the big stunts I was kind of numb to at a certain point, because it just feels like it's really trying to make you like it. It's really desperately trying to.
It sucked.
Yeah.
There was no heart or realism behind it.
Yeah.
Man, they just tried it over and over and over again. At over 2.5 hours, it's just, I mean, you were numb real soon in the beginning, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. I was not loving the action too much.
Yeah. I think it's, I mean, I'll get into my opinions of just what I kind of straight up think about it, but I think the ticker tape parade was kind of an interesting set piece. I kind of like the late 60s vibe.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, I like it better than the 50s Americana, because they can do cool things with, like, Nazi spies and whatnot, or Nazi scientists. But I don't know. It just didn't pay off in the end. So, I mean, it's like, all right, every blind squirrel finds a nut, I guess. There's a big CGI elephant in the room, and it is with flashbacks with Indy. They use the same de-aging special effects to make him a younger Harrison Ford for 2 different time periods. I would say it's probably on par for Disney's Rogue One from 2016. But they use Harrison's present-day voice, and it just sounds way too old. I expected much better from here. I expected the de-aging, but I also expected specific tech and development we saw Disney use. Specifically, you see this in later seasons of The Mandalorian to have AI stitch together voices. Hell, just how relevant AI is right now. I mean, the fact that it's just old Harrison Ford's voice in a CGI that does not look good with the de-aging. I suppose it's only an issue in flashbacks, but I don't know. What were your thoughts?
Well, the most of the de-aging is in the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that we have the Indiana Jones setup where we're going to take you back a little bit, get you caught up with where we are today. I'm okay with that. You can tell something maybe a little, as far as looks go, you can tell something is maybe a little bit off.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's so much where it's taking out of it.
Right.
The only thing I would say is that I kept on saying, all right, it looks pretty good, actually.
Okay,
good. Like, it was taking me out too much to say.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Interesting. It's kind of its own thing.
Right. It worked. I thought the de-aging looked pretty good.
Okay.
So overall, visuals I thought were fine. It is funny. Thank God he doesn't talk much, and I think purposely so. They kept the script small in these scenes because the moment he speaks, I thought the same way.
Yes.
I was like, man, they should have you just have to give him a slightly higher pitched voice.
Sure.
Because he's just a little bit slower, and then speed it up just a hair. And I mean a hair. And then it would sound like a younger Indy.
Yeah.
We're looking at normal Indy sound like an old totally.
Yeah.
I agree.
It just took me out of it.
I don't think he was talking too much though.
Yeah.
So I was almost okay with it.
Sure.
Because you only got tastes and flavors of it.
I was expecting better from Disney because, again, I'm not going to spoil which characters they do it for in later Mandalorian, but they have a stitching together to synthesize the voice, and they credit the actor for their voice.
Right.
But it's a completely synthesized AI voice, and if they're going through the lengths of the de-aging process already in the CGI, why not just use the full gambit of what the tools that Big Papa Disney has? You know?
I don't disagree with that at all.
So,
as far as looks go, did you think it looked okay?
I thought it was all right. I mean, boy, was that train sequence dark. they were hiding it up, but no, I mean, I think I was overall right with it, and in the sense that I think Rogue One's de-aging from 2016 is kind of all right as well.
Not as bad as like Kill the Irishman or anything like that.
No.
Okay.
And I think it comes from you got some serious production money behind it.
Yeah, definitely.
But again, where was that in other areas? I don't know. Folks, here is the quick and dirty on the film, though. The beginning third, I would say, is pretty solid. The middle third is pretty slow. And the last third is a pretty big mess. And flat out just not worth the runtime. Let me tell you, this film does not stick the landing. There is a very wild final sequence for this movie, which I can respect. And again, carry over praise for Temple of Doom and Crystal Skulls. I like originality here. But it's like they wanted this big set piece and just had no idea where to go with it or no idea how to write the ending. This ending comes so abrupt, so distinctly unsatisfying, and so insulting in how nostalgia comes into play with it. I would say not worth the wait, folks, not worth your attention, and not worth dusting off the hat even just one last time. We're going to go ahead and give The Dial of Destiny a 38.
Better.
Yeah, I think it's better than Crystal Skull.
That's the biggest news right there.
Yeah. I do think it's better than Crystal Skull.
Wow.
If only just for like visually a little slicker, but yeah, I gotta tell you, it is, it's still not good. And even for fans, I mean, how am I going to tell an Indiana Jones fan not to see the latest Indiana Jones film? I don't know, I really don't think it's worth your time. I'd like avoid.
Would you say this is as bad as the Matrix 4? As far as just don't go see it.
Oh, that's tough. I don't know.
Both very bad movies.
Yeah.
You're
going to rip the heart out of my brother-in-law
That's okay.
John on that one.
All right, we'll leave brother-in-law John out of it. As far as this, I like Crystal Skull better.
Oh, interesting.
Because I thought Indiana Jones had a little bit of Indiana Jones left in him.
Okay.
And with this, they just bled him out of all good things.
I like that
because
because that's like a fun. I mean, if there's going to be one thing you got to nail, it's
Right.
Indy. So.
And then we allowed this British chick when it's just like not even. They couldn't even go an American person. It's supposed to be a very American film. The funny thing was she was better than Shia LaBeouf, but Shia LaBeouf had worse writing.
Yeah.
So it's this whole thing. She's in it way too much. Again, I mean, she's just there to pick. Oh my god! Oh my god!
This might replace Black Widow syndrome. It might
so
be Dial of
frustrating.
Destiny syndrome.
I think it
now.
might be. This film gets 0 shoes.
Whoa!
And I'm not going to say don't go see the latest Indiana Jones,
Right?
Because it's Indiana Jones
It's
IP.
tough.
But boy, could you skip it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're running long. We already gave.
My timer ran out.
I gave the warning beforehand. But I have a couple finishing up notes.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Hit me with it.
After watching The Fabelmans last year, was it fun watching these 5 Spielberg things where elements you could see or anything like that?
Excellent question.
So I had heard like Raiders of the Lost Ark apparently ends with he plays around with the horizon, like the horizon is really low or really high or something like that. I know that
definitely Last Crusade has that.
Oh, maybe
absolutely.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But anything of just like of that kind of.
I would say editing for good and bad. Bad on the side of when we get to Crystal Skull. Original trilogy, though, editing was super strong, and super strong in a way that Spielberg is super strong.
Okay, all right, very cool. Anything with just like even like relationships with his father or something like that? Do you think that had something to do with Last Crusade?
Oh, wow.
Like that's because Fabelmans was kind of about him.
Yeah,
so that's what I was trying to.
That's a good point. I don't know if I was taking the father relationship that literally, but.
Take some thought. You would have to take some thought.
Yeah.
I was just curious about it because it's just like, well, Fable's been with him and how it was so about movies and about him loving movies.
Yeah.
And we're just able to drips or drabs or something up like that. But we'll have plenty of Spielberg in the future. So
I think that falls more so on Last Crusade, giving us only sprinkles of character development versus big arcs. You know, if there was something more definitive there, maybe I would tie that to it.
I have to say, returning to some of these earlier ones, I might myself be in a Ford Renaissance a bit.
Oh, okay.
Because you and I have been very hard on him lately. I used to love Harrison Ford.
Okay.
Going through a period of thinking that, like, oh my God, realizing he's a terrible actor. But I might enjoy him again. I really like seeing him in these earlier roles.
Okay.
I'm going to definitely go back and watch the first one, third one again.
Yep.
And now I want to almost hit up some of his films in the 90s before maybe he takes a real turn to not caring about acting anymore.
Yep.
Apparently, his first day on set of Cowboys and Aliens, you remember that film with Daniel Craig? He arrived in his helicopter, came out, and he just goes, "Where's the camera?" And just like, that's what mode he is in right now.
Yep.
But I kind of want to approach him and want to give him another shot because I went from loving him to not, and maybe we'll have a full Tom Cruise circle on this or something like that.
Right. That is the Tom Cruise circle.
I have a question about these films.
Okay.
I have a question, and this is the same question I've always wanted to ask you about one particular movie.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to tell you which one because we're definitely going to approach it sometime in the future.
Sure.
But
in the endless franchise revivals,
the rules are that you have to answer it, though.
Okay.
And
I like it.
And you can't scapegoat around it or cop out. When it comes to Indiana Jones, Steven Spielberg or Harrison Ford, who is more important?
Man, that's tough. I
thought it was a pretty good question.
Yeah.
Because, like, could an early Costner do this? Speaking of...
No. That's a good point.
Because you got to think about when we're in early... The main three are 81 to 89.
Yep. So who's the talent during that time that could sell the indie cool factor?
Or who's the director that could go ahead and do it?
I would say Spielberg is probably more important to Raiders. There is a big dialogue among kind of cinema history of Jewish revenge films against the Nazis.
Right, okay.
And Spielberg absolutely represents that. I don't know if I buy into it so much, but, you know, it's there is a dialogue around film criticism with that. My choice is Harrison, though, because bottom line, Indiana Jones has to be cool, and Harrison Ford is really cool.
He is, for the first 3 at least.
Yeah, exactly. The same energy that sells Han Solo and 77 and Empire is there in Raiders, and that lays the foundation for it.
I think depending on which day this could change, that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Just because he is Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like maybe another director could actually tackle this. I don't know.
That's a great question. I love that.
I can't wait to ask it for you the film I really want to ask it for you on. I'm waiting like over a year. Okay, Vin, thank you so much. Is there anything you want to add, touch on, roll credits?
I'm exhausted.
Okay.
Well, actually, I mean, we have Insidious coming up as a franchise. We have Mission Impossible, but hopefully July will have some Western action, because July was supposed to be Westerns month, but these damn franchises are encroaching.
Might just have to wait for my birthday then.
Yeah, for real.
Vin, thank you so much for watching these, for stopping by here. Folks, we are going to run this down one more time. We have Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark with an 82%. We have the Temple of Doom with a 68%. The Last Crusade with a 75%. The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull with a 34%, and finally, The Dial of Destiny with a 38%. Folks, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or tell a friend about us. If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or if you just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you receive from us. We're looking to build this into something large and great, folks, but we also want to be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.